Hey, we have such great conversations when OBG70, Zax, and I do live streams and have special guests. Not everybody wants to sit through almost 4 hours of live streams, so I'm picking out some really great parts to share in snack-sized bites. Speaking of agenda and narrative, Marvel. Purple, are you into anything at all on Marvel before I say something that gets you wanting to hit me?
I used to absolutely love the MCU right up until, when we had Endgame. I thought Endgame was a little bit weak, but I thought, it was a good jumping off point for the MCU. And then Phase 4 got announced, and it just kept going and going and going. And we got films and we got TV, and it's just one after the other after the other. I really got excited for WandaVision, and that was a letdown. Yeah. Loki. And I watched about 3 episodes. I was like, no, I'm out.
Let me ask you this. You talked about, Endgame for you. And it's weird because I watch Infinity War, you watch Endgame, and when it first came out, it was like amazing. And now as time has gone on, for me, Infinity War has gotten so much better. And Endgame, I'm like, I was maybe under hypnosis. Now there's some cool parts.
I would say Endgame is a step down from Infinity War, definitely. I think it was a good enough ending, and as you say, we had some good kind of set pieces, especially the battle at the end. I thought was really well done. Apart from that one little bit where everyone rolls their eyes. Girl power.
Mike, Zax, you and I talk about Marvel. We talk about how your kids look at Marvel, but is there anything that's coming out that for either of you, Zax or Mike, with your sons and daughters, that they're excited to see after the Legends of something rings, and then the Eternals and God knows what else, Thor: Love and Thunder? Does anybody care about that?
I keep forgetting that film's coming out.
It's horrifying.
All they have coming out that we actually care about here, because we skipped Shang-Chi, we skipped the Internals, and we're moving right on Hawkeye, and then now we're going to watch Moon Knight. He's excited for Moon Knight, and we're crossing our fingers for that one.
Mike, what about you? What are your girls?
Lots of hype for Wonder Twins. So I'm hoping.
I knew that about
you. I haven't had that conversation yet.
Avoid it. Just don't even bring it up. You don't want to see that stuff.
I don't want to talk to my daughter about adult activities in her future. I don't want to talk to her about Wonder Twins. There are certain things as a father, I think I have a compound down in South America. All of the dads with teenage daughters are all welcome, and we can all go down there until the wedding day. And that's what I'm, as soon as she brings up Wonder Twins, I'm moving out. That's it.
That's the line in the sand.
One thing I wanted to ask you, Purple, was there a movie in the MCU when it first started that really hooked you?
I really enjoy the Captain America films, but for me, it was the Guardians of the Galaxy that really kind of kicked it off. I think it was because I wasn't as familiar with the characters, but they really did something different with them. The films weren't as formulaic as the previous Marvel movies. It was something fun. It was, the great music. And I think they could have done a lot more with it. I would have loved to have seen Silver Surfer introduced had they had the rights to him, for example.
Yeah. Was there a character that you liked, or you just liked the whole ensemble vibe of the movie? That was the cast.
I think the cast worked really well. I was surprised. Rocket Raccoon, for example, I wasn't quite sure how they were going to bring him to life. And how he was going to sound, because in the comics he's got a Cockney accent, and obviously they didn't translate that across, but it worked really well. And I thought Groot was done very well as well, and God love him for saying that line over and over and over again. He could have just said it once and phoned it in, but he didn't. So thank you, Vin Diesel, for that.
What do we think happened after Endgame, where every show coming out on Disney, that's Marvel, seems to be almost half the viewership of the one previous? Remember, because we had Loki, we had WandaVision, we had a Winter Soldier, and then we had Hawkeye, and they just keep falling downstairs.
Yeah, I think it's too much. I think we've had the MCU, and obviously we've also got the DC side. We've had a lot of comic book movies over the years. You know, these films have been going for over 10 years. I think it's just a little bit of burnout, but I think also Disney got greedy with what they did. Whereas before with the MCU, we had a film every couple of years, so people could kind of get hyped for it, and it was something that we could talk about. But now it's every couple of months we're getting a new show. And it's characters like Loki that was a fan favourite, but if you compare the Loki that you've got in the TV show to what we had in the first Thor movie, they're completely different characters.
What is your perspective on why they did Loki the way that they did? Were you tolerating it by a certain point, even in the second episode, and then you're just like, oh, screw this in the third? Or was there a triggering event that made you walk away from Loki?
To be honest, it was a lack of interest. I wanted to really like it because I love Tom Hiddleston. I think he does a great character, and I really thought that they could have done something great with the character. You know, Loki is an interesting villain, and if they'd kept him as a villain, I think it would have been far interesting. But you get this kind of sympathetic character, and then all the talk about the female Loki. Well, she wasn't really a female Loki, but she was kind of, and then we get all the different variants. It just didn't work for me. And the seasons are too short. You know, there's not enough episodes to tell the story that they need to tell.
I mean, I think a lot of people who run these shows are in their silos, right? Where, well, I'm only looking at my viewership for Loki and it was, good, but they're not understanding that with every successive show that's mediocre or jammed full of identity politics or intersectional feminism or whatever it might be, that they do damage not just to that show, but across the Marvel brand. And I mean, do you think Loki is going to get even the same numbers it did at a middling state? Do you think people in general are just kind of over Marvel on Disney?
I think so. I mean, Disney are going to keep churning out these shows regardless. They're just going to keep putting them out. But I think a lot of people are just a little bit turned off by them now. There's I think WandaVision was probably the best example of a kind of bait and switch. Everybody was so hyped, and there was people talking about fan theories, and they were talking about, where can this go? What does this mean? And ultimately, it didn't really mean anything, which was a huge letdown for a lot of people.
For WandaVision, one of the things that didn't help is that the writer didn't know how to read a comic book.
Bingo.
And then the other shows are so focused on passing the torch that characters like Hawkeye that never even really had the torch to begin with are already passing the torch. And Kate Bishop was a good character. It was good. I like Haley Steinfeld. Nothing against her. It's just I want to see Hawkeye be Hawkeye for a bit. Then he can pass the torch.
Agreed. It does seem like they're using the shows as kind of springboards into the next film, and they're using the next film as a springboard into the next show. It's kind of like a domino effect that they're doing. So there's no kind of breathing room. You can't really appreciate a show or one of the Phase 4 films on its own.
The only stuff I've seen on WandaVision was clips on YouTube, because I'm not giving Disney any of my money if I can avoid it. And the one thing I saw was like, oh, look, I think it's Tanaya Paris. Is that right? The woman who played Captain Marvel in that show. The whole reason that was set up, and she was, of course, the bestest ever, was to then put her into the movie with Brie Larson, and then, of course, Ms. Marvel. And that leads me down the road of we're also getting a second season of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh God, why?
Why are we getting? Why are we getting a season 2 of Loki?
Why? That's a good question too.
It's the equivalent of styrofoam packing peanuts. It takes up space, and that's what a lot of these streaming shows seem to be turned into. And it's not just limited to Marvel. It's as we've all heard over the last 72 hours, it is now Tolkien Lord of the Rings. Has ever. This is Salty Texas Sea. I am Corey DB. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you've seen and heard, please hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you on board. That way and we have things like live streams, which we are now going to be doing every Tuesday evening. Take care. I hope you're having a great 2022.